I think it was right for the government to change strategy. If you look at the data that they used based on the Imperial academics, they said on the current projections, they were estimating that the number of people that would need admission and need ITU beds was 8 times the number of beds that we have. So I think it's really important that we've changed strategy, and it's really, really important that your viewers follow the advice given by the government going forward.
That kindness message, we have to sort of spread it around to neighbours, streets, communities, don't we?
Yeah, I think that's crucially important.
Yeah.
So we're asking, particularly our over 70s, our vulnerable groups, people with other medical health problems, we're asking them to isolate themselves for quite a long period of time. So it's really important that those of us that can, the younger generation, those without medical problems, that we step up and step in here to support them in any way that we can.
Alice?
Oh, I'm feeling fine. I'm panicking at the moment. It's a bit scary, the news yesterday, especially after telling us that everything was all right and there's nothing to worry about over the past weeks.
But they're just precautionary measures, as you heard Chris Whitty express there. So does that make sense to you?
It makes sense to a certain extent, but then there's the question of, is it dangerous to me? Is it and how is it passed on to babies? Can I pass it on to my baby if I get it? There are so many unanswered questions. Why is it all of a sudden so different? Did someone die?
Oh, not as far as we know, a pregnant woman or a woman who's just given birth. Do you want to come in here, Sonia?
Yeah, firstly, congratulations. Don't panic. This is a really beautiful time, and try and enjoy it as much as you can. There isn't any evidence globally that any pregnant woman or any baby has been harmed by the coronavirus. But we're being over safe here, but I think that's really important that we take as much cautions as we can. So do follow the government advice, but please try not to panic, because there isn't any evidence globally that pregnant women or the babies have been harmed from coronavirus. So.
And Sonia?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, so we as a family have decided that we're self-isolating. I've got a 3-year-old and she currently goes to nursery, but we're holding her at home at the moment. And my husband also has immune problems, so it's sort of quite scary for us, because there's no advice about what we should do with family members. So we've made the decision to self-isolate, but it's quite scary to think that we could go in hospital. We all know that there's more risk of going into hospital with infections and picking up things while we're in there. But then what do you do then once you had the baby? Because there's absolutely no advice or anything about what to do with newborns. So yeah, it's quite an anxiety-provoking time for, I think, any new mum.
Sonia, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, so I can understand why that's causing you so much anxiety. I think you're doing all the right things. So given that your husband has got immune problems, I think self-isolating as a family is really sensible. I'd also like to reassure you, going into hospital, cases of coronavirus in the hospital, we keep them isolated, so you won't be at risk of infection by going into hospital. So please be reassured by that. This is a changing situation, and my recommendation is, when you go into hospital and when you give birth, just talk about this with your midwife, and talk about this with your doctor in the hospital, so they'll be able to give you the latest advice on this. But you are doing all the right things, so please be reassured. What your previous message just said.
Yeah.
I think there's something I've heard as well. People are worried about not being able to pay the rent, and I would like to hear something from government about this, from protection, that they're not evicted by their landlords over the next couple of months. This is a real fear, particularly in London, where rents are really high.
Yeah. Well, a number of people have suggested, including opposition politicians, that a ban on evictions could be
I think that's definitely needed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Completely agree with Alison here. In the part of London where I work, there are many families that are already on the breadline, and loss of income over the next few weeks will mean that they'll struggle to put food on the table. So we do need the government to step in here, and also, I guess, call to your viewers at home, do what you can, support your local food banks, call your neighbours up, do what we can in this situation to make sure that everyone, including our vulnerable and our elderly, have food on the table over the next few months.
And just